All right, in this video, we're talking about strip boxes. Now, strip boxes are a very versatile modifier, and I think people tend to sleep on them because when you think about strip boxes, you think hair light or rim light, something like that. And really, a strip box can be used in any spot where you would use a modifier. I tend to use strip boxes a lot when I'm outdoors because it's easier to use this than it is using like a big, 36 or 48 inch octa, and then the wind catches it. I'm in Vegas, it's very windy, so I always am looking for ways to mitigate that. Now, of course, in using a strip, obviously it's not as wide, so you have to be very strategic in how you use it, but it is a very versatile modifier. The issue is that getting even light output, especially on a strip box of this size, this is a 1 foot by 5 foot strip, it's difficult to get even exposure depending upon the light source that you're using. So if you're using something like a speed light or any, an 8200 that has a Fresnel head, obviously our light is at the center of the modifier. So when that light fires, we're going to have more light here in the center than we are at the top at the bottom. And when you use a strip, you do want an even light source. We don't want a hot spot on the subject's midsection. We don't want a meter up at the top and then, the midsection is a lot brighter. So we want a nice even input. So in this video, I want to give you a tip on how you can even that out. So I'm going to be comparing the speed light with the Fresnel head to an 8200 or an 8400, which has a bare bulb, which in theory should help spread the light in the modifier better. And then I'm going to take that speed light and I'm going to put a dome diffuser on it, which is going to make that speed light act as a bare bulb. But also what I want to see is, does the dome spread the light better than a bare bulb will? And then once we test that, then I'm going to put the deflector plate in this. So right now this modifier just has one layer of diffusion, and I simply did one layer of diffusion because some people may not have modifiers with 2 layers of diffusion. So I wanted to just give some examples based off of what anybody can relate to. So once I do that first set, I'm going to put the deflector plate in there, which is going to basically bounce the light back into the modifier to see how that helps the light spread as well. So with that being said, and without further ado, which is what I was trying to say, so I got my light meter, so we're just going to do some testing. So right now I have just the Fresnel head speed light in there. I've got my, let's see here, I'm going to set the flash to 1/8 power. Okay, and then what I'm going to do here is we're just going to meter at the top. So we're getting 5.6. The center we're getting 14. And at the bottom we're getting 5.6. So we're looking at roughly 2 2/3 stop difference with the Fresnel speed light. So now I'm going to switch up, put the 8400 in, and then do the same test. Now I'm going to keep the flash power at 1/8, and the reason for that is because it doesn't really matter. We're not trying to compare flash output, we're just trying to compare spread of light. So I'm just going to keep it at 8 power just to keep it easy for me. All right, so same settings, we're going to hit that. So we're getting F20, F22, and F22. So as you can see with the 8400, because it has that bare bulb where the light can disperse all throughout, we're getting a fairly even reading. 20 at the top, F22 in the center, F22 at the bottom. So depending upon, if I was holding this scientifically the same distance away, probably would have been F22 at the top. So you can see that with using the bare bulb, we're able to get an even spread of light, even in this 5-foot strip box, and that's exactly what you want. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the speed light back in, but I'm going to put a dome diffuser on that speed light. And what we want to see is if we can get the speed light to function the same way as we get this to function. And then once I do that, I'm going to add the deflector plate and do the test all over again. So same thing, we're going to keep it at 8th power. We'll get F5, F6.3, and F5. So we're looking at, I believe that's like a, so we go 4, 5, 6, 6.3. So if we have 5 and 6.3, we're looking at like a stop in the third. So we went from 2 and a third, 2 and 2/3 stop to roughly around a stop in the third. So we were able to even it out by a stop, which is better than nothing. But obviously the 8400 still performed better and had a more even output. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the deflector plate in, which is essentially going to eliminate a hot spot in the center. And then we're going to see with a bare, and then we're going to see with that one. I'm not going to put the dome on there with the deflector plate because the deflector plate in and of itself is kind of going to act in a way the way that the dome would act. So let's put the plate in and then do it again. Okay, and so we still have the speed light in. We're still at 1/8 power, keeping everything the same. So now we're getting F5, at 4.5, and at 5. So even with the speed light, just using the deflector plate essentially neutralizes that hot spot in the center and gives you an even spread. So I think we already know that we'll get the same thing with the 8400. I'm going to do it again anyway, but I think we are going to be able to tell that that's going to be the same as well. All right, and last test, again, we're still keeping it at 1/8. So we're getting F20, F14, and F18. Let me do that one again because that one's kind of all over the place. F20, F16, F18. So in having the deflector plate in, we are getting less of an even spread of light. Now, the reason why I think that is because on the 8400, the bulb has a frosted top. The top of the bulb is frosted, and I think that is designed to help eliminate hot spots. So we're actually kind of doubling up with this. So we're getting less exposure from the 8400 in the center because we're essentially double diffusing that center part with the bulb itself and the deflector plate. So if you had a bulb like on the 8200, the bare bulb on the 8200, which doesn't have that frosted top, then the deflector plate would be good for that. If you have a regular Fresnel head speed light, a deflector plate would be good for that. And if you didn't have a deflector plate, you could use something like aluminum foil. You know, you can basically create that yourself within the modifier that you have. But if you're going to use something like the 8400 that has that frosted bulb, you really don't need anything other than the 8400 itself. And one layer diffusion, you're still getting that even spread.